Not the best of weekends in the Big Ten, but we look forward to week 3 here at the Big Ten Live show right here at the Voice of College Football. Leave those comments and questions there in the chat. We also have left the link for new callers. We'd love to hear from new callers. Corey, Brad, and myself talking Big Ten football with you. You can catch Corey's work from the Hawkeye of the Storm. I'll be revving it up later tonight. We got the Florida State show at 7 Eastern. Then I've got the late night show coming up at 10. Corey, your thoughts about Big Ten football as it stands through 2 weeks?
I guess this is the time to overreact because we talked about that last week or last hour on the Iowa channel. But I think there's a lot of that going on everywhere early, not just week 2, but week 1 for teams that played somebody and struggled. There was probably some of that on the Iowa realm against Albany. But, Oregon just absolutely manhandled Oklahoma State. I will admit, I am impressed by Oregon. I mean, I don't know how you can't be. That's a Montana State team that was favored to win that conference. It's a good FCS conference, one of the 2 to 3 best conference, probably the second best conference in the country. Manhandled them. Then they manhandle a lower echelon team of the Big 12 with a veteran head coach. So, yeah, I mean, it doesn't prove they're national championship level, but it does prove that they did what they needed to do and what they were supposed to do and then some. So impressed by Oregon. I'm more impressed by Rutgers, as I mentioned last hour too, than I thought I would be, just because they were more impressive in beating Miami, Ohio than Wisconsin was. And then I found out maybe Ohio is, we should have never doubted Ohio. And I don't know that you did, but that's a good program. They came back, beat another Big 12 team this weekend, this time West Virginia. And, so, yeah, Rutgers is an interesting team as they continue to evolve. And I believe I didn't watch that game, but Callie McManus played well, it sounds like. So, yeah, they're interesting because they have good – I like Callie McManus. They've got good quarterback play, and Washington took care of business. UCLA is not what I kind of hoped they would be. I mean, again, 2 weeks in, but they've lost twice now, one in really blowout fashion against Utah, and the other against an UNLV team that I don't think is probably very good, maybe middle of that conference, and that's not a huge compliment to them. They went there and lost as a dangerous game to have on the schedule at this point, year 2 in a new regime, and their schedule doesn't get any easier, Mark. That's like they are in danger of maybe – what did they end up last year, 5-7?
Yes.
Yeah, I think they're going to have a hard time getting back to 5-7 with that schedule. So, yeah, what'd you take away from week 2?
Well, I got to say, kind of following up on that Ohio Bobcat theme, yes, they, for a second time in about 4 seasons, took out a Big 12 team at home, this time West Virginia, and then following just a 3-point loss on the road at Rutgers. Now, if Ohio is able to steal a victory this weekend, then they will have arrived.
Who do they play this weekend?
They're at Ohio State.
Oh, that's a little unfair, right? It's a little unfair. It will be interesting to see how they compete.
Yeah, I think they will compete.
I don't know about that.
When I say compete, I mean 52-17.
That's not competing. Yeah, 35.
That might be a little high on both ends. 42-6.
By the way, I heard you on your live show last night make a comment about how Oklahoma State lost by almost 10 touchdowns. They lost by exactly 9 touchdowns, Mark. You're just trying to put salt in the wound. I heard almost 10 touchdowns. Well, no, it was exactly 9 touchdowns.
9 touchdowns, 63 points. No, that should not happen to any power conference team against another power conference team.
Probably shouldn't happen to any Division I team against another Division I team. Like even FCS, man, that's hard. Like,
but it
Ohio State did it to Grambling, but it shouldn't be. Yeah, you're right. It shouldn't be happening among the Power 4.
If we took most of Ohio State's results against the MAC, they're pretty much on par with that.
Toledo, a few years ago, they struggled with Toledo, didn't they?
I'm trying to think the last time they played Toledo. The last time they played Miami of Ohio, for example, that game was 77-5.
Well, yeah. Hey, look at what Nebraska did to Akron this week.
Yeah.
Look at what Minnesota. Now, Minnesota played an bad FCS school. That game did get canceled early because of some weather and some. I heard your guy after I jumped off the call last night, explained that. So that was sad that they even scheduled that game, just like it's sad Iowa played Albany week 1. But I especially don't understand playing a team like Northwestern State week 2. So learned absolutely nothing about Minnesota this week, learned nothing about Wisconsin. They played a really bad Middle Tennessee team. Didn't learn anything about Indiana. They played a bad FCS team. I believe Kennesaw State is still FCS. Did they move up? They didn't move up.
They moved up last season. Yes.
I'm like, what conference are they playing in?
They're in the Sun Belt.
The Sun Belt. All right. Well, they lost.
I believe so. Maybe it's Conference USA.
Oh, they lost 56-9. Learned nothing about Penn State, although Florida International hasn't lost to anybody else, but they haven't beaten anybody. And then here's another game that should never be scheduled, even though it's a Missouri Valley Conference opponent. It's a bad Missouri Valley Conference opponent. Northwestern absolutely thrashed Western Illinois, who is horrible. Western Illinois is one of the worst teams in Division I. They lost by 50 week 1 to the other team from Illinois. And that's an Illinois with Northwestern team that got killed by Tulane that same week. So Western Illinois is really bad. So they're probably yearning for the Coach Patterson days again. But he brought this up to my attention Saturday. Did you know Coach Patterson got them to number 1 in the country?
Wow.
They were number 1 in the country at one point. So anyways, shows you how the mighty fall, as Fall Out Boy would say. But Maryland didn't watch any of that game. I don't know a ton about Northern Illinois because they haven't played anybody either. They had a really close win against a Holy Cross team from the FCS. So my guess is they're not very good. Northern Illinois is not very good is my guess, even though I think they were picked middle of the MAC this year. Maryland was not incredibly impressive, at least on the stat sheet. I am interested to watch Malik Washington. I don't know how much you've seen of him, but freshman quarterbacks are always intriguing to me, and he's a guy who can he can move. I believe he's a guy who he's dual threaded, and he's looking at his numbers. I'm not seeing really anything. Hasn't really done anything on the ground yet, but as I understood it, he's a bigger guy who can move. So that'll be a team that's interesting. Iowa doesn't play them this year, so I'm a little less invested. I had some friends from Columbus that shot me a picture of he and his wife at the Shoe, and I said, "Oh, cool. What game did you go to?" And he actually said gambling because it's autocorrect. Gambling State. And I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. He's like, yeah, it was 70. Was it like 70 at halftime? It wasn't 70 at halftime, was it?
No. It might have been like 49.
But I didn't know who they were playing this week. So when I heard that, I'm like, okay, well, at least you made it into the Shoe. But so yeah, that doesn't tell me anything. It was not a real strong slate nationally. The good games in the conference were the good games in the conference. Obviously, Iowa State was a really solid matchup. You know, the probably the most impressive team this week on paper was was Illinois at Duke. I don't know a ton about Duke, although they paid a lot for their quarterback. I know that in the offseason. They were really good. And, that's an Illinois team that's a trendy pick right now. I mean, nobody's talking about them. I haven't looked at the new rankings. I'm assuming they're probably top 10. I guess I don't know. Did anybody lose in the top 10 this week?
Top 10 losses. Nobody comes to mind.
Yeah. So, I don't really care too much. As we talked last hour, too. I don't really care too much about the voters anyways. But, I would say that the most impressive games this week from Big Ten teams, Oregon over Oklahoma State, Duke over Illinois, and then you have to throw the close win.
You keep trying to give Duke this victory.
Illinois over Duke, excuse me. Illinois. Maybe I want Duke in the Big Ten. There was talks about that at one point, right? Conference realignment. But, no, there weren't talks about that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Periphery.
All right.
Conversation. There are talked about everything when it comes to realignment. That's somewhere.
True. Illinois, Oregon, and I guess Michigan State. Those are the best wins this week. And then there were some unfortunate results as well. The two biggest games did not go the Big Ten's way. Both were somewhat close. I didn't watch that Michigan-Oklahoma game in its entirety. I kind of saw the condensed version of it. What did you think of Bryce Underwood week 2? I know you were real impressed with him week 1.
Yeah, so I just wrapped up a Michigan podcast episode, so I always have to be on top of the Wolverines. And so I not only watched the game on Saturday night, I then went back and watched the Bryce Underwood 24 throws, of which he completed 9. hit 5 of 6 to open the game, then 4 of 18 after that.
Real rough.
It was a combination of factors. Number one, Michigan's wide receiver core is non-existent. It's not very good. He lost his best tight end, much like Iowa, who was his security blanket, and they seem to have really gelled in game 1 against New Mexico. That was his leading receiver. Could not play Marvin Klein in week 2. And it was very much a combination of pressure. Sometimes it was pressure. Sometimes he missed a throw. Wide receivers not getting separation. Very conservative play calling by Michigan. Very much went into a phone booth and just decided, hey, if we can stay within a score, maybe something will happen. But the Michigan loss to Oklahoma was nowhere as close as the Iowa loss to Iowa State. Regardless of the score, they were only down by one score, 21-13, midway through the fourth quarter. So technically, they were right there, but they got pushed around the entire game. They were not on Oklahoma's level.
Yeah, and that's good for Brett Venables. I know he's a guy that has been on some hot seats heading into the year. That'll help maybe cool that off a little bit. Did you see Alex Orji's out for the season? I don't know if you caught that.
I did not see that.
Yeah, he got. I don't think he maybe got a one carry on. He's not their starting quarterback as far as I'm aware. No. Maybe he is.
Anthony Calandria is their starting quarterback. Former
he did log. Yeah, he did log snaps and had at least one carry, and apparently he's out for the season. So unfortunate. He's obviously been through a lot, and it sucks when you transfer somewhere and you get hurt. I mean, just ask Cade McNamara that. So, by the way, East Tennessee State. Did you see Cade McNamara's numbers, the former Michigan and Iowa QB?
Oh, playing Tennessee?
Yes. Did you see his numbers against Tennessee?
Well, I know that they gave up 72 points.
Well, that's not Cade's fault.
So his numbers in trailing by 50 points the entire game were what?
I looked it up I looked it up Saturday. I'll tell you in 2 seconds. Cade's numbers on Saturday, 11 for 18, 85 yards, 1 touchdown. I mean, that's pretty Iowa-like, right? I mean, that's an Iowa stat line for a quarterback, but at least he's playing. At least it sounds like he's healthy. He's splitting time with Jacoby Criswell. And wasn't Criswell at North Carolina last year?
North Carolina. Yeah. Arkansas before that.
So, yeah, I mean, this weekend is – go ahead if you had something to add.
No, I was going to say, this weekend we get into another weekend of non-conference games, mostly non-conference games. Oregon Northwestern is there as, again, I determine that everyone is seeing what I'm seeing and they're not. There we go. So that is the slate in the Big Ten.
Yeah, like it's a really weak slate. Let's just call it what it is. I mean, you got some Big Ten matchups. You have some matchups that traditionally in the last 20 years would have been great. I mean, Alabama and Wisconsin. Now, that may be closer than we think. That's an interesting one. Don't you think that's an interesting one?
Sure.
Like 2 weeks ago, we saw it one way, and now we're maybe like, okay.
Yeah.
I do think Alabama will win easily. However, they have shown major flaws, and Wisconsin was better last week against a poor team. But that, there's interest there. I mean, I just can't get out of the taste out of my mouth of Alabama beating Wisconsin as badly as they did in Madison. And now Fickell takes his guys down to Tuscaloosa. And I think it's likely DeBoer and those guys let out a little anger because there's been a lot of negative attention surrounding them. And fair enough, rightfully so, with what that, hey, you go from Washington over to Alabama and relieve the great Nick Saban. You better expect, it's just like taking the Michigan job, and probably worse than taking the Michigan job. There's more grace being given to Sharon Moore than there is being given to Kalen DeBoer. So that's an interesting one. And in past years, it would have been really interesting. Oregon Northwestern is set to be a rout. I mean, I won't be shocked if Northwestern hangs with them for a while because it is a Big Ten opponent. And I've seen crazy things in that. I mean, I think of 2 years ago, 3 years ago, excuse me, Ohio State at Northwestern, right? Crazy things can happen with wind in the Windy City, and so who knows? Maybe that affects the game a little bit. I don't know what the forecast is, but it's middle of the day. I've seen crazy things happen there at that stadium, but I would think that's going to be a pretty routine win. And there's like, who are the other big games? Go ahead, Mark.
Well, one thing to consider about that game, and again, you went to the Ohio State matchup against Northwestern, where it was super windy, and Iowa was playing, I think, a game at Purdue the same day. Correct? That was a windy day across the Midwest.
Yeah, I was in West Lafayette for that.
Yes,
game. I've
that's
never
right.
seen debris flying across the stands in West Lafayette that day.
Ohio State, I believe, won that game like 17-6 or something like that, but it
Sounds
was like 7-3 at half or whatever it was, as a zillion point favorite. Consider that Oregon, and I don't know what the final statistics on this matter were last year, but much was made early in the Big Ten season about teams traveling 2 and 3 time zones. And Oregon not only travels halfway across the country, but they play for what is their body clock, a 9 a.m. game.
Mm-hmm.
So there is something to that. I'm similar to you. I could see 13-10 at half, and then Oregon wins, 41-13 or whatever.
And then you have almost the opposite. Probably the best game of the week is the last game of the week, Minnesota and Cal.
Yes,
9:30, and that's a game that's Minnesota time is 11:30.
Yeah,
those poor fan bases. The fans in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and the fans in Eugene. One has to get up and watch a game at 9 o'clock in the morning. The other has to stay up until 11:30 at night.
Well, no, the Minnesota fan base is going to be watching that game at 9:30 kickoff.
What am I thinking?
Well, the game's 10:30 Eastern, so it's 9:30
okay.
in Minnesota.
10:30. Got it. Why did I see? I wasn't looking at it on your screen. Where did I look? Okay,
This is a horrendous schedule of games.
Still a really late. I mean, it's still a really late start.
Sure.
9:30.
Yeah,
11. It's still late.
They're going to be playing football till 1 o'clock in the morning, and for the rest of us, 2 o'clock in the morning.
It's a bad stretch of games, but there's a couple on there. Like, I don't know, what are we supposed to break down?
What could be interesting here at all?
USC, Purdue.
Well, that's the only conference. Well, Northwestern, Oregon.
Could USC, Purdue be more interesting than we think?
Yes.
Okay.
I could see that.
I doubt it.
USC is a 21.5-point favorite.
I kind of view that game similar to the way I view Oregon, Northwestern.
Yeah.
The way I view Wisconsin, Alabama. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if those games end up tight, at least in the first half at times. But I just think there's all Alabama, Oregon, USC. There's too much offensive firepower, and those other teams just don't have offensive. None of them do. Purdue doesn't have offensive firepower. Wisconsin has no offensive firepower. Like, those teams literally don't have offense.
If you could only watch one game in the Big Ten this weekend, who would you watch?
Well, I'd watch Iowa because I cover Iowa, but as a fan, I'd be Minnesota Cal. I mean, those are two 2-0 teams, and I don't know. I think Minnesota. I think they'll probably lose. I'm not going to give away my pick. I guess I just did in a sense. I'm not going to officially make my pick right now. What's the line on that game?
We've got.
That's a hard trip out there. I mean,
Minnesota's a 2.5-point favorite.
I'm a little surprised by that. Minnesota's proven nothing to me. I don't know where Buffalo was picked preseason. Again, they were not tested at all this past week. And, Cal was kind of one of those teams, sort of like UCLA. And I was wrong about UCLA, but last year heading into bowl season, I'm like, okay, that's a team that I think is trendy to perform better in that ACC this year. And I don't think Oregon State's anything to write home about. I don't think Texas Southern is. So in other words, there are two teams that really have not been tested at all. They're both 2-0. So I think it's going to be a hard game to pick and read. But based on what those two teams were last year, maybe, Minnesota's been a better program. UCLA's trending upwards. I think that's the most interesting game. And then the element that it's out there.
Yeah, I agree. I will. I'll be sitting here. You'll be doing post game. I'll be doing some post game here, unfortunately, because I would like to see some of that. Maybe since it's going to be lasting till 2:00 in the morning in the East Coast, I'll probably catch some of it. But that would be the game I would lock into, because we don't even have any of those group of 5 teams that are threats to anyone.
Is there a game on the schedule that you could see being like, what's the game, if there was a game that's flying deep under the radar that could end up being a scare to a Big Ten team for this non-conference week? Is there one that you can find?
Well, the most capable team is Ohio. Unfortunately for them, they're playing Ohio State. But, it happens. I'd say it happens maybe once every 10 years that Ohio State will play a MAC school, and it'll be a fairly decent game. Like, they actually did play Ohio. This was about 15 years ago. I'm trying to think, 07. And, it ended up like 40-16, but it was a 3 or 4 point game at halftime.
So I was just I'll say this. Villanova was picked toward the top of their conference. It's not an FBS conference, but they were picked toward the top of their conference. They play in the same conference, by the way, as Towson. So, and Albany, for people want to know, Albany is in that conference as well. So that's the league of football teams that we're talking. So, but again, the problem is those teams play some of the, so maybe Towson, Maryland, but Towson was picked middle of the conference. But I'd say Villanova could be a dangerous FCS team for someone sleepwalking, but at Penn State, that would be hard to imagine Penn State struggling. I'm guessing, Western Michigan has not been very good. My guess is they would not be a team. They were picked preseason, picked 7th in the MAC. So that's not a game I foresee being real close. And let's see. I'm just trying to find one. Indiana State, maybe. That's an in-state rivalry game. But they play in the best conference. They play in the best conference in the FCS, as we talk about all the time, or I talk about all the time. But they were picked 9th out of 10 in that conference. They're 2-0, haven't played anybody with a pulse. They are picked. So is it New Mexico? Could New Mexico be?
According to the odds makers, that would be the game to look for. It is 15.5.
Now they played Michigan within 17 and then beat an Idaho State team, Mark, that you and I both know has been a scary team for some FBS opponents.
Yeah.
They beat them. They beat them by 10. So, yeah, maybe like the underrated pick of the week or upset alert pick of the week that's kind of a long shot would probably be just, flying through these games would probably be New Mexico against UCLA. And then after that, I don't know. I would have said Central Michigan because they beat San Jose State week 1, but they got killed by Pitt last week.
Big Ten fans, if there's a week to work on the lawn, get it ready for fall, or whatever the case might be. I know that the leaves have yet to fall, but whatever honeydew list you've got going that you've been putting off, this would be the week to take care of that.
Sure. I've said it with Minnesota playing Northwestern State. I said it with Iowa playing Albany. But is it just me, or are these Big Ten teams scheduling worse opponents now more than ever? And I don't recall Big Ten teams playing. Playing FCS teams is what it is, but playing the likes of, why is Rutgers playing Norfolk? Why is why is Maryland playing Towson? Why is Nebraska playing Houston Christian?
Yes.
These are horrific games. And I don't understand. Even Penn State playing Villanova. What business does Penn State have scheduling a team out of that league? I don't understand, other than just they don't have to. And
The only thing I'll say about Penn State Villanova and Maryland Towson is that there is some history there.
Sure. Just like there is Indiana State. I kind of understand that. But there's no history between Iowa, Albany. There's no history between Minnesota and Northwestern State.
I hate to say this about the Big Ten, but I posted this on Saturday that Penn State, Rutgers, Indiana, and Maryland should be the most embarrassed schools in the country. And I looked through just to make sure I didn't miss anyone, but I pretty much have these schedules locked and loaded. And there are no other teams in the country. They're all in the Big Ten. There are only 4 teams in the country that do not play a power conference opponent, and they're all in the Big Ten.
Here's my 2. I just came up with my second. So I've got New Mexico. I'm not picking them over UCLA, but if there's a scary team out there, not non-major games, it would be New Mexico against UCLA and Youngstown. The Youngstown game. They play Michigan State. Okay. Youngstown was picked top half of Missouri Valley. As again, best conference in the FCS, and Michigan State's coming off a very long, emotional, grueling win in double OT against Boston College. So I'm not saying it's going to be an upset, but what's the line on Youngstown, Michigan State? I'm guessing it's very lopsided. I would take Youngstown.
And a number of these games, there is no line. They're showing no line for that game.
Okay. Why? Why is there no line for that game?
Either this is a ESPN quirk, or because I don't think Michigan State is that good for there not to be a line. Like there was not a line for the Ohio State Grambling game last week. Because I think if they guesstimate that it's going to go much over 60, that they just drop it. But I don't think Michigan State's going to put that kind of beating on Youngstown State.
No. Like I said, that's a team that was picked top half of the Missouri Valley. I'm surprised that doesn't have. Why would Iowa Albany get a line, and Michigan State Youngstown does not? So that's surprising. That could be the scary midday game.
So I watched last weekend. Let's make sure that there is no line. No, there's no line.
Right?
I just looked it up on my favorite site. So anyway, I think I've got a pretty good handle on Iowa, Iowa State, Michigan, Oklahoma, and Illinois and Duke. I watched those 3 games start to finish. And Illinois was obviously the most impressive just because they won the game. I don't know that they played the best opponent, but they had a 5-0 turnover ratio in their favor, in which in a 45-19 game, people may not get this unless they really watch the game. Duke looked like the better team for the first half. For the entire first half, they had 8 tackles for loss at halftime. They were giving up negative yards rushing. They were just committing all sorts of mistakes, and that kept Illinois in the game. And then Illinois, they did dominate sometime in the third quarter, really start to push the run, gain like 130 yards on the ground in the second half. And Luke Altmaier looked great. And once Illinois got rolling, they looked really good. They didn't look like a top 10 or 15 team in the country in the first half for sure. And I would say Iowa looked the best of the 3 teams. Actually, if you're taking defense and special teams into consideration, all of it, not just, okay, well, Iowa couldn't score and they couldn't move the ball and their passing game was horrible. And you look at the issues Illinois had against Duke, you could argue that Iowa looked better than both Michigan and Illinois.
Yeah, I didn't watch that game from start to finish, Illinois Duke, but I was at the Iowa State game. Iowa State's a substantially better team than Duke. I think it's probably fair to say that. If those teams played on a neutral field, I would think Iowa State would be a two touchdown 3
What?
touchdown
No.
over Duke. Iowa State over Duke.
Illinois was a 2.5-point favorite.
Okay, well, that
Iowa
line
State's
was
not going to be
wrong.
a 14-point favorite.
That line was wrong. Illinois
Well, of course it
covered
was.
with flying colors.
But if you watch the game, you can understand why it was 2.5 or 3.5, whatever it
It was on
was.
the road. I'm saying a neutral field. I would have Iowa State as a double-digit favorite against Duke.
No. And I would take Duke in points.
Well, you'd be wrong, Mark.
Hey, I'm 24-14 against the spread this year.
Hey, I did a little better this week on my numbers. I'm at least gaining ground where I did. It's not like I did great against the spread. My numbers again, I did really well money line, but I did. Sorry, I'm reading the chat. My bad. But I at least coming back close to what everybody else is doing in our group. By the way, just broke. This is Big Ten news, so this is relevant. You're talking about Illinois. Illinois athletics just announced a quote transformational gift at a transformational time end quote. University of Illinois alumnus Larry Geis has made a $100 million gift to the Illinois Division of Intercollegiate Athletics, the largest gift in the history of the department. In recognition of his contribution, Illinois Memorial Stadium will now be known as Geis Memorial Stadium. Okay, that's pretty insane. That's pretty insane, Mark. So my question is, does that change anything? I mean, I know there's always donors and gifts to different programs, but that's a lot of money.
I would love to hear the conversations that are being had about what to do with that money.
How much is Brett Bielema involved with those conversations as the head coach, who may not be there in a few years? You know, I mean, he could end up somewhere else.
So if they're putting this guy's name on the stadium, he is obviously highly invested in football, it sounds like.
I mean, they're renaming the. I mean, they're not totally renaming it. That's amazing.
Wow.
So yeah,
Geis Field.
I don't know if that's pronounced correctly. GIES. So
I'm going to go with Geis. Geis Field, Geis Stadium at Illinois. So I wonder if he has that locked down for the rest of his life, for the rest of eternity, what the conditions are.
The rest of eternity. Well, I don't, based on the way this is read, I mean, I didn't read the full release, but based on what they posted on social media, and maybe, again, I could totally be wrong about this, but it may not be like a contractual thing where they're required to keep it for a certain amount of time. Maybe it's just he wants to donate $100 million and rename the stadium after me. And I don't know if those things have to be in writing. It's a gift. How can it be in writing if it's a gift? It's a transaction. I don't think a gift there can't be stipulations on a gift, right? I don't know how that works for a public institution, but.
And then if I know what people are thinking in the chat, and I totally get it, because the first thing I'm thinking is how much do they pour into that football team in terms of not facilities or anything like that, the actual football team paying players to attend the University of Illinois and play football, and then just the responsibility of taking that money and then determining who's worth the 300,000 here or the 1 million there, what recruits, what transfers, and is this guy just okay with it regardless? You just do with it as you will. I just wanted my name on the stadium and I've got $100 million laying around. There it is.
So the question is, for someone that doesn't follow the economics as much as you do behind the sport, with the new revenue sharing rules, I mean, how do they do that? How can you manage? You can't just pour more money into revenue sharing, correct?
Yeah, so that is an interesting question you bring up because the revenue sharing comes directly from the revenue of the sport, not
My
individual gifts.
yeah,
And
my
this is also not an NIL situation.
right. My guess is this can't legally go to the players or by rule
Yeah,
in any way go to players
sure.
directly. So my guess is so there's got to be ways to go around that, right? I don't know. I mean, I think that's probably, in a sense, that's what the NCAA and this NIL committee is trying to avoid, things like this happening where it is giving. It's basically just a donor saying we want it. So my guess is this has to, by rule, go to facilities or
Yeah.
equipment and all those things. So then it's like, yeah, can you make your your locker room better? Can you how much does it make to do a drastic improvement on a stadium? Does that stadium need work, or has it been revitalized in the last couple of decades?
Well, I've never been there, but by the looks of it on TV, it does not look like
Yeah,
one of the great shrines of college football.
that would probably be the one thing that I'd be saying if I'm Brett Bielema. Let's how much does it take to? And I'm not saying that 100 million is going to get you a new stadium, but how many improvements? How much can we do to get students more involved? Like that would be the thing. You can really imagine the amount of promotion. However, you could do whatever you wanted to promote to your student body to get more students in there every single week. Hey, what would prevent Illinois from saying we have $100 million, so now all the students are going to get in free for the next 5-10 years? That would be a drop in the bucket. $100 million. Every student gets free admission. In fact, hey, we're going to pay you to come. We can't pay our student athletes, but we can pay our students. We're going to start paying students to walk inside Memorial Stadium. You remember that episode? Remember that part of Dumb and Dumber where they're walking into the hotel and Jim Carrey's got the $100 bills and he's here you go, here you go, here you go. That's what's going to be. That's going to be Brett Bielema before all the games at what did we say, Geis Memorial Stadium.
I'm just trying to figure out why you would do that to give it to students.
Well, they need a better environment. Like if you can't make drastic improvements to the actual facility, if you can get a really good environment in there, it's going to make the most out of the facility you have. That's all I'm saying.
You figure out how to circumvent that money to get it to players and acquiring a better roster.
Well, but see, that's against the rules.
Well, I know it's against the rules, but I'm saying, and I'm not saying to go against the rules. I'm saying that there has to be some way to say we can now fund some things that otherwise would be going elsewhere. And we have plenty of money for X, Y, and Z now. Therefore,
yeah, no, I'm sure all these programs, they're finding a way around the rules, but I'm just trying to think of,
like there have to be collectives out there that do give toward facility upgrades and other things. And then you say, okay, we don't need that now.
Yeah, but you can't. It's not like you can just say, well, we've replaced those dollars with this fundings, and so now we're going to bring the rules still apply to revenue sharing.
I'm just thinking there's got to be somebody smarter than me that knows how the game's played and can
that's
figure
also
out
what the people who have enacted these new rules, that's what they're trying to avoid.
And I also don't know the status of Illinois' facilities in terms of the comparison against other teams in the Big Ten, whether they seriously need an upgrade or not. Yeah. All right, folks, that's the glorious lineup in the Big Ten this week. Big Ten fans rejoice. Give me one good game. Indiana State, Indiana, New Mexico, UCLA, Oregon, Northwestern, Wisconsin, Alabama. Sounds good. Central Michigan, Michigan, Houston, Christian, Nebraska, Maryland, Towson, Villanova, Penn State, Purdue, USC, conference game, Norfolk State, Rutgers, Youngstown State, Michigan State, Ohio. Again, unfortunately, what I think is by far the best opponent for a Big Ten team outside the conference is playing Ohio State. That spread's only 31.5. Western Michigan, Illinois, UMass, Iowa, and Minnesota Cal. There's your game.
I mean, Ohio's not a better opponent than Alabama.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
I meant, yeah.
Of the non-Power 4
yes
opponents, because Cal, Minnesota, I don't even think Cal, Minnesota is the best game on the schedule, and I don't even think it's close.
No.
It's got the best chance of being competitive.
Yeah.
So.
And we're at about that time in the season that I like to compare these conferences. So we'll let week 3 ride, and I'll see what the week 4 schedule. At that point, usually everybody's playing conference games.
And it's going to be hard for Big Ten to do much this week to help their rating, unless Wisconsin goes out and beats Alabama. That might help a little bit. Or if the Big Ten loses one they shouldn't lose, that might hurt. But there's not much room for movement there with the schedule.
As it stands right now, the Big Ten is what against the other conferences? Oregon beat Oklahoma State.
Iowa lost to Iowa State. Michigan State beat Boston College.
So if we can divide the wins, let's go with the wins. Michigan State beat Boston College. Oregon beat Oklahoma State. Ohio State beat Texas.
Yep.
Illinois beat Duke.
Okay.
That's 4. Nebraska beat Cincinnati.
True.
5. And
is that it?
I believe that's it. I'll keep scanning my brain as we get into the losses.
Yeah, Rutgers beat Ohio, but it doesn't count the way you're
no
reviewing it.
Iowa lost to Iowa State. Michigan lost to Oklahoma. That's 5-2. Those are the only 2. Washington still has to play somebody. UCLA lost to Utah, so 5-3, I believe, is the record.
And UCLA lost to UNLV, and Northwestern lost to Tulane. Does that not count? It's almost like those losses should be taken into account.
Oh, sure. Yeah. And I do take those into consideration. I was just adding up the power conference matchups. 5-3 for the Big Ten. So that doesn't sound too bad.
Nah, that's not very good. That I don't view that as very
great. It's not great. USC's got a date against Notre Dame. Purdue will play Notre Dame.
I mean, Wisconsin, Alabama
is
a game that will go one way or the other, and we expect it one way. So I guess if anything, it's the greatest room for movement of the non-conference schedule potentially. Besides Ohio State, Texas, that was the biggest non-conference game overall.
Yeah. The best the Big Ten should hope for is splitting those 2 games, the 2 power conference games.
Yeah.
All right, Corey. Nobody wanted to call us.
Well, that's okay. It's always fun. This goes by quickly, and I don't know about you, but I'm looking forward to a late night on Saturday. Although, how much of it will I actually get to watch? Because I'll be doing Iowa UMass postgame at 10 o'clock at night, starting at 10 o'clock at night. So I'll be on the air for the entirety of Minnesota Cal. Maybe I can wrap up a little early. Maybe we can do that. But
you need to implement what I do. This is what I do right there. So I'll come on after the game, and if people don't want to see me after an hour, then they don't need to see me after an hour. Well, all right, folks. We do appreciate you being here. Catch Corey on From the Hawkeye of the Storm all week, covering Iowa football as Kirk Ferentz. By the way, we did not even mention this during the Iowa show. With a victory against UMass, will be the all-time wins leader in the Big Ten.
Just another reason why that loss last week was so disappointing. Just to have to break that record against UMass. Just what a polar opposite scenario of what would have been had they won on the road. But yep, he'll break the all-time record for a Big Ten coach.
Anybody in the chat want to mention who currently has the record? Tied with Kirk, of course. And dare I say, with about 60 some less losses. Had to get that in. Yep. All right, folks. Appreciate you being here. I'll be back with the College Football Show late night at 10 p.m. Eastern Time. Meanwhile, the Florida State Show on the FSU channel with our guys James and George and myself in just about a half hour. We'll see you then.